We're recording the interview of Dan Semsel. This interview is being conducted by Adrian Hill and John Granada from the Wright State University Veteran Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at VFW Post 3283 in Huber Heights, Ohio. It is 4 p.m. on July 28, 2014. All right, to start out, we'll go over some biographical information. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Bangor, Maine in September of 1966.
Okay. Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My father is George Semsel, who's a professor at Ohio University who taught script writing and filmmaking. My mother is a homemaker, Rosemary Semsel. She passed away in 1998. My dad was from Stamford, Connecticut. My mother was from Arlington Heights, Illinois.
Okay. Did you have any siblings?
I got one brother. His name's Thaddeus. He's a chef at Jackie O's restaurant in Athens, Ohio.
Okay. Did he have any service? Any of your close family have military service?
My father served, obtained the rank of corporal in the Army Guard back in the, I'm going to say in the 50s, maybe early 60s. I'm not sure what time that frame that was.
Okay. What year did you enter the service?
I went on active duty in January of 1989.
And what were you doing at the time before you joined?
I had just graduated from Ohio University after completing the Air Force ROTC program and finishing my degree.
Okay. And what branch did you serve?
Served in the United States Air Force for all 25 years.
Okay. And you did officer training, so you did not enlist, but you signed a contract with ROTC then?
That's correct. I did the 4-year program, so after 2 years I signed the contract obligating myself to complete the ROTC program or enlisting in the Air Force as the alternative.
Okay. And why did you choose the Air Force?
I honestly chose it because a friend of mine did not have a means to pay for college and was trying to get a scholarship through Air Force ROTC, and I thought by showing up and signing up that it might help his chance of getting a scholarship. He did 4 years and separated, a little bit over 4 years and separated, and I did it pretty much almost as a whim, and 25 years later retired.
All right. So what your early days of training after ROTC, after you got out of that program and went into the actual Air Force, what were the first days of your training? I guess you didn't go to OCS, did you?
No, I did while in ROTC in 1986. In the summer of 1986, I did my field training during the summer at Plattsburgh Air Force Base in upstate New York. It's the only base that I think during the summer training periods that actually has to use their wool blankets they issue. I completed that program, and then upon graduation from college, I went straight to a technical school down at Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi for 5 weeks. Technical training in information management and information systems. Then I reported to my first duty station at Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma in March of 1989.
Okay. So that was all your initial training then?
That was
done
the
at that
initial
point?
training.
Okay. Do you have any memories from that, or remember what it was like, what it felt like getting into that military lifestyle?
It was transitioning from a civilian lifestyle to the military was interesting. ROTC prepared me to some degree, but it's a whole different thing putting on your uniform once a week for ROTC versus making that your career. And I remember very distinctly the base itself, Keesler Air Force Base, where I did my training, was a training base for a lot of junior enlisted folks. And our barracks, the junior officer barracks, was right next to one of the junior enlisted dining halls. And your arm would wear out saluting just hordes of young airmen as they came out of the dining hall and realized they were about to run over a lieutenant that was trying to get back to his dorm room. And it was complicated when I blew my ankle out doing PT, and my dorm room was on the 3rd floor, no elevators, so I'd have to hop up 3 floors on crutches with books and the appropriate training materials. So inevitably the drill sergeants would yell at one of the young airmen to grab my books and take them up to the 3rd floor for me, which was appreciated but also very awkward for a brand new lieutenant with less than a month of service time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was Mississippi was pretty much as advertised. It was hot, it was humid. The day I signed in was the day of the Bengals dropping the Super Bowl to the 49ers for the second time, which was a little bit depressing coming from Ohio. But it was funny because I showed up on base with a whole host of other brand new trainees, young officers, and we all kind of gravitate to the first person that successfully found the Super Bowl on their TV. Ended up going down to that person's room and sitting back and watching the game with a bunch of strangers. It was 5 good weeks, and it was, for me, it was a chance to reshape my mind a little bit about what I just gotten into.
Okay. So how did you adapt to it though? Like once you got to your regular duty station and you went from that putting in a uniform on once a week to doing it every day. I mean, to the food, the barracks, the social life. Do you think you adjusted pretty well?
I think it came along pretty good, but I had on the average, an Air Force officer should move about every 3 years, and I was screwing that average up for everybody else. I did my first PCS move with 16 months time on station in Oklahoma, and I had the virtue in my first couple of assignments of having some non-commissioned officers that did a very nice job of helping me understand how the Air Force worked. The Master Sergeant Jim Dillman was my NCOIC at my second assignment. Taught me a lot about the career field and about how to lead. He showed me some fantastic examples through the way he conducted himself that I carried with me through my career. It's one of those things, as a young officer, if you've got that mentor, that experienced individual that can really kind of show you how things operate, it makes it so much easier to transition. The first assignment was a lot of, at Oklahoma, was learning a lot about what it was to be in the military. By the time I got to Nevada, and the second assignment, 16 months after I got to Oklahoma, you get a chance to work with Sergeant Dillman in Nevada. It was honing my skills and learning that my ego was not bigger than the Air Force in many ways.
Okay.
What kind of leadership skills did you learn from him, or just pick up as you went throughout your first couple years of being a new lieutenant?
Well, Jim was great at basically showing me how to manage time, how to basically focus on the objective at hand. What is the job that we're really trying to accomplish, and looking at every small piece that goes into that. Where does that fall into the objective of the squadron? Whether it's something as mundane as performance reports, or whether it's the scheduling of the weekly rotators. The job I had in Nevada, we flew to work on Tuesday, we flew home on Friday every single week. So it was like being on a short remote assignment, a week-long remote assignment every week. But he found a way to basically show how every piece fit together. And I think the lesson I took from him the most was to realize that every job out there ties into the Air Force mission. And sometimes you have to stretch a little bit to see where the connections are, but he broke it down to make it very simple. And that really paid off for me down the road, because I could look at what I was doing and try and figure out how to eat the elephant one bite at a time as a result. I wasn't looking at trying to do the entire deployment from start to finish in 30 minutes. It was figuring out what's the first step to take, what's the second step to take.
Okay.
All right. So let's go to your wartime experiences. What? Oh, okay. Wartime experiences abroad. Where all did you serve? You listed them earlier.
I served in Desert Storm in Saudi Arabia at Al-Kharj, which was at the time the asset reconstitution unit for the Air Force. We took all the stuff left over after the fighting ceased and tried to put it all back together, primarily the Bear Base deployment packages from New Mexico. We tried to take all the spare parts that had been used to assemble these bases and repackage them and send them back for reuse. That was post-Desert Storm. And then my second deployment was to Al Dhafra in the UAE with the KC-10 tankers. I went over there as the director of logistics, and our job there was to launch tankers in support of the Operation Southern Watch missions. That was 1997, right after my daughter had been born. I deployed 2 weeks after she was born. What made the first deployment, the Desert Storm one, a little more interesting was I had just come back from a 1-year remote in Iceland. So in theory, I was supposed to be untouchable for being sent on another remote. But a tasking came down, and when we looked at all the available people that could fill the tasking, it turned out I was the most eligible to deploy. So 9 months after I came back from a remote, and 3 months after my wife and I found out we were pregnant, then I'm heading over to the desert and telling my wife that I may not be back when the baby is born. So there was a direct correlation between desert deployments and daughters in my household. My third deployment was to Panama, and that led to follow-on trips to El Salvador and Colombia when I was stationed in Arizona.
What year was that?
I was in 1999. I closed Howard Air Force Base in 1999. I had a gift for closing installations. I'd been involved with base closures and unit closures in the past, and so they deployed me to Panama to help shut down that base. And I was one of the last 10 people to walk off before it was turned over to the Panamanians. Following that trip, I was sent to El Salvador and Colombia to do partnership initiatives with their air forces, and that was the first time that I really got to see what it was like to be in a real high-threat environment operating in Colombia. And then followed that in 2004 with a deployment to Iraqi freedom, to Baghdad, with Task Force Rio as the operations officer. As a career Air Force fuels officer, you expect to spend most of your lives around air bases. Apparently I made the mistake of saying "hua" in a staff meeting, so I deployed with the 1st Cav. We were attached to the 1st Cav, an Army unit out of Texas. And I spent my deployment in OIF on convoy with the Army, which for a career Air Force fuels guy who had gone in learning how to shoot paper targets and clean a 9mm, it was an eye-opening experience to learn how to become a combat effective soldier, to be able to go out on these convoy operations. Mm-hmm. And then my final deployment was 2008. Went to Kandahar, Afghanistan, as the deputy commander for an air expeditionary group doing basically medevac and air rescue missions and doing UAV operations in support of the primarily the Afghanistan theater, but in particular with the Princess Patricia's Royal Canadian Light Infantry that was doing operations in southern Afghanistan at the time.
Mm-hmm. What base were you on in Kandahar?
I was on Kandahar proper. Our unit was based out of Camp Samak, which was on the Kandahar Air Base, okay. Named for an Air Force PJ lost his life, I believe.
Okay. All right. Now, when you were overseas for any of these deployments, did you see any combat when you were over there?
Yes, particularly with when I was with the 1st Cav, mm-hmm. We were outside the wire 4 days of the week.
Okay.
And we took pot shots probably every other time we were outside. I survived an IED strike on my convoy. It was a regular event. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, too regular. When the Blackwater contractors were ambushed on one of the main supply routes, our convoy happened to be south of Baghdad, and they put us into a blocking position to try and engage the guys that had ambushed the Blackwater guards. And the bad guys never did come to us, but it's kind of chilling again to be an Air Force guy from stuck behind a fence line and in the rear base most of the time, to suddenly being told by our convoy commander, "Get out, we're going to be moving real quick to this location. If you see these vehicles, engage on site." Mm-hmm. So it was, I'll give the Army a rash of crap every chance I get, but God bless them for knowing what they know. Mm-hmm. They taught me how to be at least not just baggage.
Yeah. Did you What was your rank at the time of that last deployment you were talking about?
In Iraq, I was a major,
Mhm.
from a major promotable to lieutenant colonel.
Okay.
Uh, what was kind of funny about that was there was 2 majors promotable in the unit. So we had to compare dates of rank, and the most senior person would be the unit deputy. And the other guy had me by 2 months date of rank. So he became the deputy. He was an Army 04, and as an Air Force 04, being the junior of the 2, I became the operations officer. So the guy with the Army skills was not going out with the Army unit.
Yeah.
Which we both found kind of comical from time to time.
Yeah. All right. So what were your regular duties? Let's say we covered the Iraq one. What about you said you broke down bases in South America. That was pretty much your duty there, was to break down the
Closed
bases.
up Howard Air Force Base.
Okay. And then what about in Kandahar? You said it was UAV?
Kandahar, we did the UAV operations, supporting the Predator and Reaper operations, providing real-time surveillance. And as the forward location, we'd make sure that the birds got up in the air, so the guys that were flying those birds and doing the intel and doing the appropriate surveillance operations had them ready to go. And then we also, our group was kind of a patchwork group of all the Air Force assets at the location at the time. So we also had the PAPOC rescue choppers, so the pararescue guys and the medevac rescue also fell under us. Those guys would do the operations to bring in the casualties direct out of combat straight to the hospital.
Okay. So what was your specific job then? You were just in charge of running that?
I was the deputy commander out there.
Okay.
And it was oversight, back up the commander that oversaw all the operations.
Okay.
And again, not a standard job for a career supply fuels type. Just happened that I had the skill set and I was deployable at the time, and they needed somebody to cover that operation. So took me out of my comfort zone and had to learn on the fly again.
Yeah. Going back to that deployment to Iraq. Now you said you went on a lot of convoys. What was the purpose of that? Like, where were you?
We were we're basically overseeing the Iraqi humanitarian fuel importation mission. We had set up contracts because under Saddam nobody could have cars. So the Iraqi petroleum industry could handle the demand of producing enough refined product for Saddam and his henchmen and the people he allowed to have cars. After Saddam was gone, everybody in the country seemed to develop a need to have a car, and they did a fantastic job of patchworking some things together that would not come close to passing any road standards in the U.S. But now they were going through fuel faster than their refiners could produce it. So Iraq has a great crude oil capability, but they needed to figure out how to get enough fuel in to support their economy as it was growing. So we basically arranged contracts, pipelines, trucks to bring in refined fuel products to Iraq. My role was to go out and directly engage with the senior folks at the various refineries and the various distribution hubs to make sure that they had what they needed to bring this fuel into the country, and to try and meet the ambassador's goal of, I want to say it was 15 days of supply of gasoline and diesel for the entire country. So it was a lot of, I drank a lot of coffee and a lot of tea with the folks that were involved with the Iraqi oil industry. And we also did evaluation of the capability of their refineries to receive trucks. We did assessments of their industrial capacity, their storage capacity, and we helped develop ways to make it more comfortable, more, I guess, more viable for the drivers to want to drive in from Turkey or Jordan or Kuwait to bring fuel into the country. And the ultimate mission was to transition that entire operation back to the Iraqi government, to their Ministry of Oil. But it had to be built first. Again, it was a new capacity for a new capability for them. So that's why I was brought in.
Now, being Air Force, and I guess not fully expecting maybe to be in a combat environment, or at least outside the wire to a perspective, what was your initial reaction when you found out that was going to be your assignment? And then what was your reaction the first time you actually were engaged?
I think I had no idea what I was getting into. The reality came to pass when I was sent to Fort Bliss for the pre-deployment training with the Army, as opposed to going through Air Force pre-deployment training, which was a whole different world for me. It was learning how to move and shoot, and a lot of the combat skills that we just at the time did not teach in the Air Force. When we changed that up, some of the guys that worked for me at a later assignment were part of the guys that built the combat convoy courses when Air Force drivers started taking those convoys on. It was eye-opening. It was my reality was changed when I wasn't just cleaning a 9mm and shooting paper targets. When I was actually having to move forward and engage pop-up targets on an Army range, and getting lectures from experienced Army civilians and senior NCOs on the impact of the training. And first time I heard shots fired in anger. You know, the adventure goes out really, really fast. The first time somebody says, by the way, they're shooting at us. Until you hear a sound of a bullet going by, you don't know what it sounds like. And that was eye-opening. It was, when we got hit with the IED, that was, you know, it's an understatement to say that was a significant emotional event. I came back in that day completely wired. I mean, the adrenaline just coursing through my body. We got out lucky. We got shaken up, but nobody hurt, nobody killed. Superficial damage. Finished our mission, came back in, and about 6 hours later, the adrenaline all wore off, and I slept like a baby. But the next day, I woke up and I was a wreck. And my boss could see it. He kicked me out of the office and told me to go spend some time at the chapel. So it changes your perspective. I never would have imagined being put in that position. And it was, well, big difference between hearing bullets going by and hearing a bomb go off.
All right. How did you stay in touch with your family and friends on your deployments, respectively?
You know, my kids, when I went to Baghdad, were very young, elementary school, and we used traditional paper letters. And I think it's kind of funny because my younger daughter is very quiet. She doesn't talk as much as her older sister, who talks all the time. But she liked to draw pictures, so she would send pictures rather than writing out sentences. I think she was kindergarten, maybe first grade, that time frame. And she sent some just absolutely adorable drawings that she did. One of them was, it was kind of funny. It was a card she did, and the cover was one of those little girls crying. I've got 2 daughters, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, that's just kind of a kick in the morale junk right there. But I kept those. And then one of the neatest things was when I came home the day after I got back. I was very jet lagged after flying from Iraq to Kuwait to Germany to Fort Bliss to go through their reintegration program. Then from Fort Bliss to Dallas to Hawaii. I had no idea what day it was, what time it was. When I hit the bed, it was probably about 3:30 in the afternoon. I didn't get up till the next morning. When I woke up, I went downstairs, and my younger daughter had drew a little picture that I've still got. It was just a girl with a big smiling face, and it just wrote on top of it, "Daddy's home." And I still got that one. That was, yeah, it was tough. But we did traditional letters. I didn't want to use electronic media at that point for OPSEC reasons. I didn't want to talk about what I was doing. I emailed my wife on a regular basis, but the kids were too young for email. That changed when we got to Afghanistan. Then the kids had their own email accounts, and it was a daily ritual. I'd go in an hour before work and email the family. They all got an individual daily update from me, just to let them know I was doing okay and that everything was fine.
Okay. Yeah. Now we're going to kind of come to the coming home part after each deployment. Any of them especially memorable to you?
You know, like I said, the events with my younger daughter, the picture she drew for me is one that I'll cherish the rest of my life. That's one that I keep with many of my military keepsakes. That it meant about as much as anything could. Again, they knew I was off fighting the bad guys. It's about the extent of it. We were in D.C. on 9/11. I was part of the first response team to the Pentagon, and for probably a few days afterwards, my older daughter would get visibly upset when planes flew over. After that, that was. They didn't fully understand what happened. When I went down to the Pentagon, I ran down there. The boss said, "Dan, grab your gear, you're taking the team." And so I went down there, ran to the house, grabbed my go bag, and told my wife, "I'm going to the Pentagon. I don't know when I'm going to be home." And that was a significant event for the girls, but they understood there was bad guys trying to do bad things, and that I was going to do my best to stop it. Afghanistan was a little different. The girls were in junior high, and I was able to, when I came home, they were at school, so I met them when the bus came off. And it was a typical Missouri day in the fall with a lot of rain, but there was nothing that was going to stop me from standing out there at that bus stop. And it made it worth it. It's kind of funny because it took a long time for us, I think as a military, to understand how to bring people back the right way. I made it my mission. I had a very good Chief Master Sergeant I worked with in Missouri, that he and I believed that we needed to talk to everybody when they came home. So we'd find a way to catch every reintegration briefing and talk to them about, here are the mottos like Army Strong, Be All You Can Be, and Aim High. That's all really good, but I wanted them to hear from two people that had been there, who'd seen some of the ugliest that you could see, that it took a huge amount of cojones to be able to say, "Hey, I need help when I come home." I saw the impact of deployments, multiple deployments. My career field on the enlisted side and on the officer side was one of the heaviest deployed in the Air Force. We did do the convoy operations. I would match any of my convoy teams, any of my transportation drivers. I'd match their combat records with just about any flyer, and I'll tell you that the people with more combat time are my drivers. But we didn't get it at first. We didn't get properly how to bring people back and listen to what was being said and what wasn't being said when they came back through a deployment line. Everybody knows how to. Everybody knows the answers to give when you walk back in. But getting people to where they're willing to say, "Hey, I've got a problem. I need help." That's tough. That's very tough.
Yeah.
And it's having watched it, having lived it. If I didn't do it for the people I served with, then I wasn't doing them a justice. So, between Chief Rare and I, we caught every single mission. When I was in North Dakota, there's 3 planes that came in and out every day to North Dakota. My deployers were on those commercial airlines, and I met every single plane. I saw them all leave. I saw them all come home. I stood with their families. I wanted to make sure they understood as soon as they walked off that plane that we were there and that we were going to be there for them.
Okay. Did you have any, like, how were you received by your family and community when you got back from these deployments?
It was tough with the family. My wife and I talked when I got back from Iraq. I asked her up front the day that I got home, do you want to know what I did? And she said no. And so she didn't know. She found out when some folks came to present her the declaration. And then
What declaration was that?
Joint Service Commendation Medal for Valor.
Okay.
When the problem was, my commander in Iraq was my commander at home station. And he elaborated. He expanded on what was on the citation, so my wife knew all the details.
And what was that citation for specifically?
That was the IED hit. And it was, well, I got kicked out of the office that day. The senior officer who came out took a look at my wife's face, and as my commanding officer was expanding on what happened and talking more about it, she had just gone white as a sheet. And the senior officer looked at her and told my boss, Dan's done for the day. And they kicked us out.
Yeah.
So I got a half day off with my wife. But that's the first time she heard that. And the good and the bad part was there's a lot she'll never know.
Yeah.
The community, every place I've been has been amazingly supportive of the military. That side of it was easy. The family side, that was the tough part. I don't know, if my kids ask me, I don't know what I'm going to tell them. I've told people, I've told friends that I did not have a normal career. And some of them understand what that means.
All right. I'm kind of coming, we're going to focus on coming out of the military now. So how did you readjust? You've only been out a year now, you said? Okay, how have you so far readjusted to civilian life? Going from 25 years, you know, it's a lot.
I told people my to-do list. I retired on the 22nd of May, 2013. That was, a few people caught on, that was the day my mom died, the 22nd of May. And she had died 15 years prior, and it was significant for that reason. I put down a to-do list for the day after my retirement that said, Dan sleeps in and doesn't shave. And I'm very proud to say that at about 12:30 in the afternoon, right afternoon, when I finally got out of bed, I refused to look at my razor, and I went out and said, yep, checklist done. Adjusting to life after the military, that's been a whole new adventure. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I finally figured that out. It took a little while. I did. I got licensed to do financial counseling, investment advising, and insurance sales, and did that for 3 months, and did quite well at it. But it just didn't feel as satisfying as I really wanted to feel after my career. And I got an opportunity to work with veterans and help give back by finding employment opportunities for veterans in the Miami Valley. And I joked with my boss a couple of times that I can't believe they pay me to do this. This is amazing. You know, I can get up every day and know that something I'm doing is having an impact on a veteran, whether it's somebody that's been out of the military for 20 years or whether it's somebody who's been out of the military for 20 days. I can do something to try and help them find what they want to be when they grow up. And it's extremely satisfying to continue to work with the veterans in this community.
Okay. So that's your full-time job now?
Full-time job.
Okay.
As program manager of the Veterans and Employers Connection through Goodwill Easter Seals Miami Valley.
Okay.
And working to build a network to help veterans find employment.
Okay. Have you stayed in contact with any of your, the fellow veterans that you deployed with or that you were in the military a long time with, kept in touch with them?
I've stayed in touch with a few. I learned early in my career that when you send out email addresses and phone numbers and stuff like that, that you tend to throw it away after time. It gradually fades out. I'm still in touch with a few folks that I served with. Some previous bosses, some friends that I served alongside. It's kind of funny that one of my senior civilians, who was a retired Air Force Master Sergeant down in Panama, he and I are still in contact through Facebook and through email. Some of the folks that I've served with in other deployments and other operations, other assignments, the same. It's funny, some of the folks are still there, very much on the radar, some of them aren't.
Okay. So we'll just kind of go into some reflections here about your military experience. How has like your military and your combat deployments and things like that, how have that affected your life in general?
Yeah. I've faced a lot of interesting challenges. I've had cancer for 13 years. I fought hard to, it's funny because the Air Force wouldn't deploy me. They wouldn't send me overseas. The Army had no problems when I was in a joint unit. That's how I ended up in Iraq, was they said, that's all? Okay, you're deployable. I found running to be my sanity. That's been my escape, my means of dealing with everything. I was challenged by a buddy of mine after my second cancer surgery to run a marathon, and then I did so. And then when I was in Iraq, that would be when I come back off convoy. The first thing I would do after we got back in and did our debrief, once that was all done and we were dismissed, was I'd hit the gym and I'd get on the treadmill. And after swearing I'd never run another marathon in my life, I went out and did it again. And then I found just how therapeutic it was for me. I could go out, particularly on the trails, and just escape. And the bad days aren't bad anymore. Running is it for me. That's I run 50 miles a week. I've tried to find new ways to push myself. I'm running 100 miles in a single race this weekend. It's a way I can go, and I can personally control the volume of what goes on in my head, and I love it.
And that's helped you get through everything.
That's been for me. I can go out by myself and just listen to the trees, talk to the trees. I can go out with a group and just focus on the run and the way that it charges me up. And a good run can completely change my day. Even if I'm having a rough day, I can get out there and burn away frustration. I can burn away anger. I can burn away fatigue. Running has become my means to an end for keeping everything in balance. Okay. It's been a huge help for me. I'm not getting any faster as I get older, but I at least think I'm getting better looking.
All right. What are some lessons then that you've learned from your military experience overall?
Yeah, the one thing is every day is a gift. We get 24 hours, but every day that we can never get back. It's an amazing 24 golden hours, and if you don't make the most of those 24 hours, you're missing out. Every day has got to be celebrated for what it is, because you don't know if you're going to get another one. So enjoy the moment and make the most of it. And it's the small things that make it worthwhile. I think that's the thing that I took from it more than anything else. And the second most powerful thing is there's nothing that you can't accomplish if you've got a good team with you. If you're focused, if you're if you know where each other's coming from, a good team can make miracles happen. And that's, I think, the two lessons that for me strike home the most.
Okay. Now, how has your military service impacted your feeling towards the military in general?
I'm very glad I did it. If my kids joined the military, I'd fully support them. I think there's just too many mistakes made by the media in the way they portray us. They're too free to try and categorize the members of the military. I look at the military service as it's shaped me, and I can look at specific events and see where those events by themselves have shaped me. It's a decision that started with a whim to help a friend get a scholarship, and 25 years later I have no regrets about anything I did. I got a chance to work with some of America's finest, and what could get better than that?
Okay. Did you have something you want to add?
Yeah. And being able to talk to you, 'cause you were finished off as a vice commander at Wright-Pat, correct?
That's correct. I was the vice commander for the 88th Air Base Wing at Wright-Patterson when I retired.
And you were what was your final rank?
I was a colonel.
Okay.
06.
I guess, coming from the enlisted standpoint, what would you say, because we had a lot of officers and whatnot, especially at DIAS, and who it seemed like they were kind of going with just a speech, like it was kind of like a canned, hey, here's to get you excited. What would you do, like, if you really had to tell your guys, not only just to get them pumped up, but really how to succeed in life and succeed in their lives as a whole and a future and with their families? I mean, did you have anything that you took pride in the fact that you said something and you wanted to affect change in everyone's life that you came across? Because that's a high position that you are in, and very respectable, and I'm sure a lot of guys listen to you.
I think the one thing that I told people, and it's funny because it's the lesson I still use now. I coach a running club in Kettering. I tell people, trust your training. And I've been using that philosophy for ages. Folks, nobody goes out to do a poor job. Not everybody's going to achieve the same level of excellence, but I'll be just as happy watching a person take a bigger step than they've taken before, whether it comes to while they serve, whether one of my airmen, or whether it was, I think one of the moments that strikes home with me quite a bit, particularly given today's political climate, was when one of my young airmen basically ran to my office to tell me he'd just become a U.S. citizen. He was from Central America, and I don't know the full background, but the day that he got his citizenship was significant enough for him to come running out of the warehouse down the hall to tell me I did it. And it was one of those things just to be able to celebrate with him, just those little steps. People know when you're feeding them a line. And I've tried to always lead from my heart. It's, I mean, there's times and places for the cheerleader to come out. There's times and places to sugarcoat it. But the long and short is people know when you're feeding them a line. And I figured it was best to just be myself, let them see me being myself. My deputy in North Dakota caught on real quick. You can't embarrass me. You can put a pie in my face, you can hit me in a dunk tank, you can try and prank me, but you're not going to embarrass me, because I'm willing to do that for just because. If you're yourself as a leader, if you just if you be yourself and you let people see you comfortable with who you are, and if you trust them to do what they've been trained to do, and let them learn how to do it, let them not be afraid to make a mistake. If you get them set up that way, they're gonna do some amazing things for you. It's the strength of a team. When they believe in what they can do as a team, they'll make miracles happen. That's most people don't need somebody there giving them direct step A, step B, step C. I mean, they can read and follow the directions. need somebody there's got their back. And that's the way I always tried to lead.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to leave for future generations who will view or hear this interview?
Never underestimate the value of service to your country. It doesn't necessarily have to be military service, but we all we enjoy some amazing freedoms in the United States of America. Find a way to give it back and pay it back. It doesn't take a lot. Or military service is right for some people, it's not right for others. But if you don't find a way to do something for the greater good in one way or the other, you're missing out. You're selling yourself short, you're selling your country short. My message is find what that passion is and give it. Find a way to give back.
Okay. And is there anything else you feel that we haven't discussed or you wanted to elaborate on?
No, I think we got it. I think you got enough to be able to cover what you need to.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for your service.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for your service.